Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking everything movies, TV, comics, and entertainment. Join in the conversation on social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go. Welcome to an all-new edition of the ODPH podcast. What is happening, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us this week. My name is Ken M. Joining me in studio, as always, you know him. He's the co-host. He's a statistician to the stars. His name is Padawan J.
Let me talk to you.
And boy, we have something big to go over in the land of movies, TV, comics, and more. You are tuned in to the entertainment edition of the ODPH, and we definitely like to keep those conversations rolling after the show. So, Pad, where does everybody go?
ODPHpodcast.com.
From social media links, blogs, classified section, which has friends of the show, such as 3FN Podcast, Dragon Master Games, Nerd Initiative, and many more. A directory. Pat, how many providers are we on?
920,503.
And your source?
Trust me, bro.
To a great music section. Basically, if it's anything and everything that is the ODPH, you can find it at odphpodcast.com and keep that conversation rolling about the parlay of topics you hear each and every week, because we definitely go there to interact with everybody, and we like to have those conversations. And this show, we're keeping it very solely focused on one area because, well, let's face it, it's one that we really want to give some time to, and a peek behind the curtain. It is a very bad snowstorm happening right now.
It's a very bad snowstorm in this episode. I will take full responsibility for this. This episode is coming to you a day later than it normally would, because I did not literally see this film until today because, well, life decided to get in the way for the entire week this film has been out. Movie came out, was busy with other commitments the day it came out. Friday, Valentine's Day. Of course, I just got married. It's my first Valentine's with my wife. We've had several Valentines together as a couple and engaged, but this is the first one.
Right, but it's the first one is the legal union.
Yep. So then Saturday, another snowstorm. Sunday, family dinner. Monday, wasn't feeling it, plus wrestling and exhausting day. And then Tuesday was another snowstorm or something coming through. There have been 1,000 snowstorms. So this one's fully on me.
Yeah, which, I mean, listen, we're not faulting, because guess what? Real life happens. We pivot, we adjust, we adapt, but we still bring you a parlay, a topic each and every week.
Yeah.
And we've been doing it now almost 800 episodes.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were that far.
Oh, we are that far. I will tell you the number off air, but we definitely want to jump into a movie that has pop culture talking for a lot of various reasons.
Yeah.
And it's been one that we've been anticipating for quite some time. And the MCU is officially back at the box office, the big screen, however you want to define it. Pad, what are we talking this week?
Captain America 4, or as it's better well known, Captain America Brave New World.
Yes, the Sam Wilson-led era of the Captain America mantle is in full effect. Anthony Mackie has reprised the role of Sam Wilson, a.k.a. Captain America, and this is really an insight to where he's going with this character in a brand new landscape of the MCU, because this year is a very pivotal one. I think for all the hype that has been building around DC films, Superman, and rightfully so.
Sure.
We know that this is a very big year for Marvel. And with 3 movies slated to come out, live action shows following suit, the MCU really wants to establish that they are still the powerhouse of pop culture, that they have built the brand up for many, many years now. So this film has not been without its own controversies of rewrites and drama, if you will.
Right.
You know, we'll just put a lot of allegedlys behind it.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we still have a film involving Sam Wilson and an unlikely antagonist, if you will, in Harrison Ford's General Thunderbolt Ross.
The other thing I want to point out, and I was digging this up while you were giving that wonderful intro, is this film and this year are pivotal to Marvel, because let's face it, it's been couple of years. I don't want to make anyone feel old here. I felt that earlier this week. That's a story for off air. But it's been a couple of years since the last major Avengers film. You know, I came out April 26, 2019. So yeah, we're sitting there about 6 years removed, give or take. I'm going to round up and use round numbers here. So we're about 6 years removed since the last Avengers film. And in that time, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This marks the 13th film not counting television shows, released in the MCU banner. We are very close to Avengers Doomsday. The Avengers Doomsday currently slated to release May 1st, 2026. And then right after that, about a year and 6 days, Avengers Secret Wars, which we all know that's going to be a major one. That's going to be huge. That's going to be, the biggest one they ever did. All those, hyperbole and all that stuff. There's not a lot of time to get into this and build up to it and give it its due. You've almost got to do like a drag racing, hit the ground running type thing with this, especially after having pivoted from what the original plan was for the post Thanos, Infinity Saga storyline. They had one thing in mind. You can go back and listen to our previous episodes.
Yeah.
You know what it is. We've been down that road. We're not going down that road again. But they had to pivot. They've pivoted, and we will see where it goes, but there's not a lot of room and there's not a lot of playtime. So they've really got to hit the ground running and nail it.
Yeah. So they definitely want to make sure that they made a mark with this film.
Yeah.
Box office numbers?
I have box office numbers. I got ratings. So take this one with a grain of salt because it's IMDb and, well, anybody can rate that thing. With 44,000 ratings, it's got a 6.1 out of 10 on IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato meter, so that's the critics score, out of 289 reviews, it has 49%. The popcorn meter, so that's the viewers score, has it at 80%. Box office numbers, currently the film is sitting with a domestic total of $106,341,290. Internationally, it has made $98,270,592 for a worldwide total $204,611,882. And of course, surprising to absolutely no one, it was the number one film at the box office this past weekend, even when you extend it for an extra day because it was President's Day weekend here in the States. So a lot of folks were off of work on Monday. The kids were off of school on Monday as well. It was the number one film at the box office for that weekend.
So that said, we want to do a deep dive into the film and give you our review because, let's face it, the ODPH review is one that is highly sought after because we definitely have that interaction with you, the ODPH Society. So we're going to give you our takes. Now, if you're new to the show, first and foremost, thank you for checking us out. What we like to do is give you a spoiler-free statement of what we're talking about. Then we give you a countdown. At said moment, you have to make a choice. Do you stay or do you go? If you want to stay, you're going to hear spoilers. You're going to hear theories. You're going to hear a deep dive into every detail about what we're talking about. If you opt to pause the episode at this moment, that's perfectly fine.
That's fine.
But remember to jump back in because we want to hear your takes along with ours because there's a lot to discuss with this movie. So that being said, Pat, give me your spoiler-free statement on Marvel Studios' Captain America: Brave New World.
It's a fine movie. I wouldn't say it's the greatest film of all time. I'm not going to sit here and say it's the greatest MCU film of all time. But I did enjoy it. And it's one that I think for the first time in, I'd have to look at the list again, quite some time. I've come out of seeing a Marvel movie that, I wouldn't mind watching again. I'm not necessarily going to make it a day one when it drops on Disney Plus rewatch, but it is one that, if I'm ever feeling bored or even with the streams they got on Disney Plus, if it's one that pops up down the road that, on the Heroes and whatever that title is for that one streaming channel on Disney Plus, that if it's showing on Disney Plus and it's kind of late at night, there's nothing on TV, I might put that on and watch that, but like I said, it's not the best MCU film of all time. It's by no means the worst, and it's enjoyable though.
I think there's a lot of pop culture that really enjoys this film.
Sure.
And they should. This is a very fun film. It's not the greatest, though.
No.
And I think a lot of times when you deal with the MCU, certain films are put on too high of a pedestal.
And the bar is very high.
Exactly. And especially for being the lead film of a calendar year that is stacked. Everybody's expecting a home run out of the gate. Where this movie excels in is establishing that Sam Wilson is Captain America. And there is no doubt in your mind about it because the performance that Anthony Mackie gives is amazing.
Yeah.
He is very, very good about representing what Captain America truly is, and that is the ideals of the nation.
Considering how destroyed the man was at one point by Eminem, he's had a nice recovery.
Yeah, yes, he has. Yes, he has. But he's also supported by two other great performances in this film. Carl Lumbly's Isaiah Bradley, who was phenomenal in the role.
Applause for him.
Exactly.
Oh.
And even Harrison Ford's Thaddeus Ross.
Harrison Ford could have very easily mailed this in because, let's face it, he's been around a while. He's up there in age a little bit, and it's a Marvel movie. Is this exactly the stuff of legend that'll go down in the annals of history as like. He's 82 years old. He turns 83 in July. So he could have very easily mailed this in, but he didn't. He acted his ass off.
Well, he understands when dealing with franchises like this, obviously with the history from Star Wars,
Indiana Jones. What's the other one? The sci-fi, the other sci-fi one. You know what I'm talking about?
Blade Runner.
Thank you, Blade Runner. Yeah, he's done a few.
He's done quite a few things.
Just don't ask him who shot first.
Yes.
Word to the wise. Or do. See what happens.
Yeah, I would say that's not the exact F around and find out moment you want to do.
Yeah.
But he understands, especially dealing with a franchise like Marvel.
Sure.
Expectations are high. You want to make sure you nail what you need to nail because the fan base is very rabid. Yeah. And I think that's where you're kind of seeing the divide about where this movie ranks. And I think that if you take it for what it's supposed to be, it nails what it needs to.
Yeah.
You are fully convinced that Sam Wilson is Captain America. The road to get there, though, is very, very winding because there's a lot of extra bells and whistles thrown in this movie that I think hurt it more than help it.
Okay.
But it doesn't take away from being an enjoyable film. It's very exciting in moments. Albeit, though, I think from point A to point B, it could have been sharper.
Sure.
But I left the theater very satisfied with what I saw. Would I go back and see it? Yes. Am I running to go back and see it? Not at the moment. But I know we're going to start deep diving into what this movie is all about. So consider yourself warned, ODPH Society, because in 3, 2, 1, pad. Let's really break this down.
Like I said, movie was enjoyable. I like you said, I dug Anthony Mackie's role in this and his acting in this film. He certainly asserted himself in the role and was on that, I'll say, Chris Evans level of like, he showed up on screen, you knew he was the guy.
Yes.
He was like, this is the guy, that's America's ass, all that stuff. Harrison Ford was incredible. I really enjoyed Danny Ramirez as Joaquin Torres more than I thought I would. Just because, I'll be honest, I didn't remember seeing him all that much in the trailers, if he was in the trailers, featured in the trailers at all. I came out of the theater really enjoying him and wanting to see more of his character. Isaiah Bradley was incredible. Giancarlo Esposito, phenomenal work how they used him. And just the overall story, I know some people are calling it Winter Soldier Light, Lite. And to a certain degree, yeah, that's true. But I really enjoyed the hell out of Winter Soldier, so I really enjoyed this one too.
I liked what they were trying to do with this. And like I said, the major point is you left this knowing that Sam Wilson is Captain America. Like, there's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
Because if you take a look at what Steve Rogers did with the role, Steve represents the ideals. At the end of the day, if whoever is in the mantle of Captain America represents the ideals and doesn't deal with the political nonsense and X, Y, and Z that comes with it, they're doing the justice to the mantle. That's why Steve excelled at it. That's why John Walker failed at it.
Yeah.
That's why Bucky Barnes, I really say, is not a great Captain America, because for him it's a redemption story.
Right.
Not necessarily about what the mantle represents. In Sam's case, he is the rightful heir to the throne. And he solidified it with this performance.
Absolutely.
But where I think things get really confusing and I think hurt this film tremendously is why are we merging the Incredible Hulk sequel into this when you're trying to do, like you touched upon, a Winter Soldier-esque movie? Because there is way too many references to the Ed Norton film in this movie that I don't feel was necessary.
Well, I agree with you to a certain degree, but I also feel like it was a little necessary for them to see because let's face it, when it comes to the list of MCU films, I think that one is I'm not going to say it's the bottom, but it's towards the bottom.
Oh, it's towards the bottom. Let's be honest.
No, I'm saying it's towards the bottom of films folks have seen. If you're talking if you're talking percentages, like Endgame, Infinity War, the first Avengers movie, like those, especially those ones in the Infinity Saga, high on the list. The percentage of people who've seen, we'll say, the Hulk film, it's a very low percentage.
Oh, no, I'll grant you that. But I think for involving as many characters as they did, I don't feel that was necessary.
Sure.
I'm not going to say this comparison is exactly, but if you think about why we didn't like Batman versus Superman,
yeah,
you merge The Dark Knight Returns with the death of Superman.
Yeah.
Too many stories at once.
Yeah.
You did the same thing here.
Yeah.
Because at one point, this honestly turns into a film about General Ross more than Sam Wilson.
Yeah.
Albeit it's brief, but it happens.
Yeah, the film in certain points could have definitely used a little more fine-tuning.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Especially the story. I'll give you that, yeah.
Yeah, because where you're trying to make this all about Ross's presidency and how that affects Captain America, you start focusing more on the reasons why it's an attack on Ross more than it is involving the legacy of Captain America.
Sure.
And that's where I think you should not have focused as much attention on this film.
Sure. I mean, you can make an argument this film is The Incredible Hulk 2.
Yeah.
You can make an argument that this is episode 7 from the Falcon and Winter Soldier television series. You can even make an argument that parts of this were cut from the script of Eternals. In regards to certain, or at least some of the...
One part, yes.
You can cut certain parts of those were Eternals too. And like I said, you can also say this is Winter Soldier Light, or how it should have ended version of Winter Soldier. You can certainly say that.
Yeah, there's an argument to be made about this.
Yeah,
which I'll say this: they at least tried tying Eternals into this somehow
for the first time since the film came out.
I mean, they've addressed the giant celestial in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
Which is the first time I think they've even gone near that since the film happened.
I think and I could be wrong, #ODPH pod, I think we've seen it in like a news broadcast.
It was brief, yeah.
It was a blink and you miss it, but they have not directly addressed it, which has been a big sticking point, I guess you could say, for fans, both diehard and casual of these Marvel films and television shows since the Eternals came out, that you have this giant fucking head and hand coming out of the Earth's crust that we didn't know was there before, and you hadn't said boo about it.
Yeah, it's the ultimate reasons.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Granted, we have a lot to say about Eternals. You can go find that episode and go from there. But for where we jump in here, it's all about Thaddeus Ross. Thunderbolt Ross is now president of the United States. Mm-hmm. So he's been elected. Sam Wilson and Joaquin Torres are the new Captain America and Falcon.
Uh-huh.
They're sent on a mission to Mexico because they're sent to stop a deal of stolen
items.
And the group that's responsible for it is the Serpent Society.
We find out it is, because Sam shows up to the mansion building, whatever it is, and he has his little drone thing flying around scanning. And the guys back in the plane for the army or the military are looking at the scans and they're like, wait a minute, that's Sidewinder. Like, Sidewinder's, why is he here? He's not supposed to be here. And that's when they start picking up, like, oh wait, there's more to this than just it's a illegal sale.
Mm-hmm. And Sidewinder is played by the one and only Giancarlo Esposito,
masterfully.
Yes, who was great in the role. And if you're not familiar with Captain America's rogues outside of the Red Skull, the Serpent Society is a long thorn in Cap's side. Like, long time thorn.
Yeah.
And this is where you can go into the runs of like the 70s and 80s and really kind of see what this is about. This is where Diamondback comes into play.
Yep.
And I know that her character was cut out of this from the film.
Yep.
We know that Seth Rollins was attached to this in a role, I believe, as King Cobra.
Well, King Cobra, but from what I'd also heard, it sounds like at least in the early iterations of when this was being filmed, the role he was playing was at least partly Sidewinder in all but name. And then they started making some changes and what have you. And the story I had heard was that he was not available for reshoots, so they had to kind of adjust and pivot things.
Well, that's what we kind of say about the reshoots that we've heard. There was a lot of script rewrites. There's a lot of allegedlys with this.
Yep.
So I think that did play a factor in this film because you can tell at points it's just you're trying to force a square peg into a round hole.
Yep.
And that's one thing that's noticed. Not here, though, because the beginning is great.
Yeah.
You get it's almost like an intro for new readers.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with what Sam Wilson can do in this mantle, you see a great action sequence. He goes to business and obviously dealing with Sidewinder, and it's nothing but pure action. Which
it's the opening of a James Bond film.
Essentially, yeah.
You know, by and large, the opening of a James Bond film has nothing to do with what's going to happen in the story for the rest of the film. Obviously not the case here, but it's just that action sequence to really get you going and really set the pace.
Yeah, so they do a great job about doing it. There's a mystery about what was stolen.
Right.
And how this all comes to be and what was eventually recovered. And it's a very, perfect opening for what should be a Captain America film.
Yep.
I had no issue with this at all. Then you go back to Washington, and you're seeing how Torres and Wilson are interacting. And it almost reminded me in a weird sense like, Bruce Wayne and young Dick Grayson.
Sure.
Because Torres is very excited. He's
he's learning how to be Falcon.
Yeah.
He's got one of his old suits. Sam isn't ready to call him Falcon yet, but he is learning.
Yeah. And like I said, Danny Ramirez is great in this role.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was the comic relief when it needed to be, but he also showed that youthful inexperience throughout this film. Yeah. And this is why Sam wants him to get training, and who he assigns as his trainer is Isaiah Bradley, who is a super soldier, who is a Korean War vet, and he was wrongly convicted and sentenced to prison for 30 years, and in those 30 years, experimented on. Yeah. So Carl Lumbly definitely elevated this role, and like I say, just stole scenes from everybody that he was involved with here.
Yep.
Phenomenal performance.
Yeah.
So while he's now training the new Falcon, General Ross invites Sam Wilson and company to a summit at the White House with all new, with the world leaders. It's kind of like the first time the president is now speaking to the world.
Yeah, because it's in his, so the opening scene we saw was the night he won the election. So that was in November, for those of you not familiar with, the U.S. election season. We then flash forward 5 months, because I was counting this while I was in the theater. Flash forward 5 months, so that puts it in April. And the one point that gets brought up, I forget when the scene takes place, but it's around, I think it's before this sequence takes place, or it's around the sequence. The thing Ross talks about is his first 100 days. So this is kind of like, the early test and the early run and feel how things are going. And this has been like a major point of his election and his campaign of like, we're going to do this. We're going to do this together. We're going to settle this and come together as a world. And this is and he's kind of spearheading the whole thing. France, I know we see the president of France is there at one point. The head of India is there. The prime minister from Japan is involved. Those are the countries I can remember from the flags we see later in the film. There might have been more, but I could be forgetting them.
And while they're going over this, we get the introduction of what the stolen items were that Sidewinder had. And Pat, what was that?
Adamantium, which had been discovered on what is now dubbed Celestial Island, a.k.a. the head and hand coming out of the Indian Ocean.
Yes. So, obviously, if you know your Marvel lore, you know who is closely tied to adamantium.
Some dude named Logan.
Yep.
A.k.a. Wolverine. The other thing I want to point out is they waste no time, because he's setting this whole thing up and explaining what it is. He the first 5 minutes or whatever, he's describing this thing, wastes no time before he even says the name of what it is. Goes out of his way and says it's stronger than vibranium.
Oh, yeah. That was deliberately on purpose. They want to make sure that everybody knows that when we see Logan show up, that when there's a confrontation involving vibranium, don't be shocked when adamantium defeats it.
Yep.
So they definitely were planting a big Easter egg there.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, the only question is how we're going to get from point A to point B, because I know that there was a lot of online chatter about, well, how are you going to do Wolverine's origin?
Well, we'll get there when we get there, but the thing we got to keep in mind with this film is what was stolen had been the first successfully refined sample.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to point out too, and I don't know if you picked up on this, I know this has been done in kind of the more recent run with Avengers and what have you. They got a base set up in that thing.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind for down the road.
Oh, yeah. No, they definitely were building for that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where they're ultimately going to go with that, I don't know.
Yeah.
And especially involving mutants and especially with Wolverine, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Because we do know there is another universe out there.
Yep.
Stemming from the events of the Marvels that is very, very populated with mutants. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily know they're going to redo the introduction of Wolverine here, but I would say this. By the time we get to Secret Wars, I think we'll have it established, and I think this is just the only reason that this is even mentioned in the film.
Right.
Is so the pop culture audience is educated enough to know when Wolverine confronts whoever is having vibranium on them.
Right.
That when Wolverine cuts through it,
don't be surprised.
Don't be shocked.
Yeah.
That's literally.
Because people threw such a hissy fit when Cap's shield got broken in half by Thanos.
Yeah. So they're just planting the seed now. Like, don't be shocked when this happens, because it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. At some point, it's going to happen.
Avengers vs. X-Men is going to happen at some point.
In some variation, yes.
Yep.
I'm
not saying near future, but down the road.
No, I mean, I'll even say this right now. You're going to have a small X-Men versus Avengers moment during Secret Wars.
Sure.
It will be small, but it will be enough. I'm going to say 10 minutes.
Okay.
But you'll have something like that. But while this is going on and the presentation is going on and Ross is really trying to sell his treaty about distribution and we want to work with the world, all of a sudden we hear a very vintage song play entitled Mr. Blue, as we find out. And this is a hypnotic suggestion.
Well, it's got one, yeah.
Yeah, that kicks in. So you see Isaiah Bradley amongst other random people in this party go on the offensive and start attacking General Ross and people around.
And the one thing that I could have at least understood an explanation about, because we didn't get one in the movie, why is there so much bulletproof glass around President Ross, General Ross? Like, I understand he's the president, protective. That's what the Secret Service is there for. Opening sequence of the film. It's his acceptance speech on the night of the election. He goes out, he waves to the crowd, and then he walks back. He's behind bulletproof glass with just a big enough opening for him to go out and wave to the crowd. We get into this. It's in the White House, one of the most secure buildings on the planet, in theory. End of the movie. Not so much the case. But it's in real life, it's one of the most secure buildings on the planet. And yet, the glass he's encased in is this all fancy schmancy $1 billion, Stark Tech display screen. It's bulletproof. Why is this man surrounded by so much bulletproof glass?
Oh, I can answer this for you.
Ooh, okay.
He is one of the most hated characters in the MCU.
True.
And there is a laundry list of people that would try taking him out.
Yeah.
And they don't know his secret, so they think that they can just go in there and attack. And he's so paranoid.
I was just going to say, now I'm thinking about it could be paranoia.
It's, complete paranoia.
Yeah.
Because you think about how many people he's ticked off in the MCU.
Half those powered individuals on the planet.
Exactly.
Sokovia Accords.
Enough said. So that all ties in with this. Yeah, you put somebody in that position and they are definitely paranoid of the world around them. Yeah, they're going to do the extremes of security.
Yeah.
So I had no issue with that. Like, this makes perfect sense. But while this is all going on, you see Bradley makes an escape. Sam Wilson goes, chases him. And when they finally come to, Bradley has no idea what happened.
He's in a park somewhere not far from the White House with like the entire DC police force and whatever Secret Service can be mustered bearing down on the guy. And he's like, what am I doing? Why am I here?
Yeah. So we do see that he's taken in by Ruth Bat Serpa, who's played by Shira Haas, who in the comics is the character known as Sabra.
Okay.
And they changed her origin around for this movie. And if you know the comic character, there is ties to the Hulk.
Yeah. The other thing we should point out, too, is before the presentation and shit kicks off, there is a meeting between Ross and Sam. When they first show up to the White House, where this friend that, this person on the inside, Leila Taylor, shows up like, hey, keep an open mind. Ross has this meeting and basically goes, hey, we know the Avengers as they aren't coming around anytime soon. I want you to reform the Avengers and basically have it under his purview. And Sam's a little hesitant of this because, as is alluded to several times throughout this movie, they haven't seen eye to eye on every topic, the last couple of years.
Yeah. So we do see, obviously, Bradley's taken away.
Yep.
And Sam is now wanting to investigate. And this is where the whole political argument comes down.
Yep.
And this is something that Steve Rogers had to deal with in the 80s. This is how he was fired from being Captain America.
Yep. Sam literally walks into, the presidential bunker, whatever it's called, with all of the staff members and what have you, the president's close inner circle, going and security trying to stop him. And because of the fact he's Captain America, they let him through.
Yeah.
Although, to be honest, they weren't going to stop him.
No, they weren't going to stop, but these are all, I would say moves behind the scenes.
Sure.
Because we do see that Bat Sapra is watching the entire time.
And they kind of gives off this, like, you can't really trust her vibe, at least this early.
Right, because as we find out, she's a former Black Widow.
Yeah, she's Red Room.
Yeah. So that's pretty much like all her character is.
Yeah.
So we're just going to leave it at that with her. But we do see that she's watching them as they're making moves. He's going on the offensive to track down. He winds up getting attacked by Sidewinder.
Yeah, he gets basically told to stand down by Ross, and he's like, no, I want to investigate this. And Ross tells him, how would this look if Captain America himself launches an investigation into the person who tried to assassinate the president, who's also a good friend of his.
Yeah.
He basically gets told to go home, boy.
Yeah.
Which pisses Sam off. Sam storms off and decides he's going to take things into his own hands.
So after this all is going down, he's now heightening up the investigation.
He's bringing in Torres, like, hey, we got to start, like, dig up the security footage. We got to figure out what happened.
Yeah. So all signs point after they get here to an abandoned army base, Camp Echo 1. And this is where Sam and Torres go to find out more clues about who's behind the attack, because all the while Bradley's getting put on for a death sentence.
Yeah, he's basically, well, they're going to try for the death sentence. Sam and Torres figure this out because, like, they end up getting so when Sidewinder attacks Sam, Sam defeats him. He's in police custody, what have you. But while he's kind of unconscious, quote unquote, the phone rings, and it's this weird distorted voice who starts talking to him, hangs up, and Sam tells Torres, like, hey, track where this last phone call came from. Comes up this Camp Echo 1, and it's suspicious to them because it's in the middle of nowhere. I think they said it's in Virginia or West Virginia, somewhere around there. There are no roads leading to it. The satellite photo was blurred out, so they're like, okay, yeah, that's an off the grid military installation. We got to go check that out. So while they're on their way there, they're off the grid. They don't have their smartphones. They find out that the other assassination suspects, not Bradley, because the head of security was going down there to check them out. Two of them was it two, three, whatever.
It was three.
Three of them get assassinated, and they find out about this. And they're like, "Oh, this ain't good." So at this point, because they can't, the head of security, Bat Seraph, realizes, "All right, something's going on. I can't guarantee your safety." They put Bradley in solitary confinement.
Yep. So they're literally going into this base with no idea what was happening, other than they're chasing a voice, and they do find out who that voice is. And that is who, Pad?
Samuel Stearns, a.k.a. the leader.
Yep, the longtime Hulk villain has now made his official MCU appearance and really came off like a James Bond villain.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, he's essentially Silva from Skyfall.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Oh, yeah, completely. And he goes into full villain monologue mode, saying that, really why he was trying to do what he did.
Here's how I got turned into how I was. Ross saw that, exploited it for his own personal gains. I helped get him elected president. He told me when that happened, I'd be pardoned. Or I don't think he ever said what it was. It was just like something would happen, and he hasn't delivered.
He talked about pardoning him. He talked about he was dangling a lot of
carrots.
But when it didn't come through, he decided to go flip everything on it. And then they find out basically how the hypnotic suggestion was placed into the song and how this all connected on the cell phones and X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
So we really find out everything is going on.
Yep.
And he does the typical villain duck out. Well, I have control of people here because I've been left to my own devices. I've been working on things.
Yep.
You do see a heart chart, which we'll talk about in a bit.
He's been there for 16 years.
Yeah, so we do see this great fight sequence. So all the while you're seeing Sam and Cap fight, or I'm sorry,
Cap and
Falcon.
Cap and Falcon, yeah.
You see Bat Sapphire show up.
Yep.
And she winds up helping them now. So it's the three of them against the world.
Yep.
They do go meet up with an old friend of Sam Wilson, who we know from the comics, and that's Dennis Dunphy,
a.k.a. Demolition Man.
Yes, who if you've ever seen the costume, it is literally put the brown and yellow costume of Wolverine and with the red of Daredevil put in a blender, and that's what you get.
And literally verbatim. You don't believe me? Google it.
Yep. Longtime Cap ally.
Yep.
So
it's a guy Sam trusts. They do run the ballsy move of playing the song, because they're like, oh, we got to block everything going on here. But how do we know there's not anybody under control here? Falcon literally plays the song, and everyone kind of looks like going, what the hell? Whatever. And he goes, hey, we're good.
Yeah, because they want to make sure as they're walking in to catch up where Sidewinder is, because after the skirmish that they had, Sidewinder was taken in because Sam defeated him. He now has to have that run-in, which, this is typical superhero one-on-one.
Yep.
You see Giancarlo Esposito ham this up perfectly.
Only thing missing was a bucket of Los Palos Hermanos.
Yes. And dangles enough information that Sam has to now go on a wild chase to go figure out how he's going to stop Stearns.
Basically talks his way out of a life in prison sentence, at the least, into a, hey, reduced sentence with my own room.
Because now he understands that the whole plot of this movie was really
to humiliate Ross.
To humiliate General Ross and cause a world war.
Which he almost does.
He almost does, because everything now leads into Celestial Island.
Yep, because at this point, Sam and Falcon basically go like, oh, hey, we got to go to Washington and find talk to Ross. Well, problem is, and Dunphy, Demolition Man goes, well, problem is he's not in Washington. Was in Tokyo, but they're on their way now to the Indian Ocean because things have kicked off between Tokyo and the U.S., and they're now fighting over the adamantium.
Yeah. So they're now on course to go get whatever adamantium they can have, and General Ross's ego gets in the way here.
France and India are drawing up contingency plans.
Yep.
World War III's on the brink.
And during this time, too, Stearns, because he is ducked out and is on the run, winds up controlling two pilots. So he has had sleeper agents throughout the armed forces of the U.S. So during this, they cause the two pilots to start attacking the Japanese contingent.
All the meanwhile, we find out, because Sam confronts Ross in a conversation like, hey, we can have this conversation in public, but it's probably best if we don't. Find out that Ross knew everything that was going on, didn't want to tell folks, and that and we find out that he'd been visiting, the black site, and been visiting Stearns the entire time. Like, why are we visiting? Why? And we'll come to find out, Ross was dying of heart failure, and that that his doctors couldn't figure out what was going on, and that it was Stearns developing these pills, and these pills that he's been eating throughout the course of this entire film are the only thing keeping him alive.
And Stearns, and the only reason that Stearns is still there is Ross was thinking if he pardoned him or it came through on his deal, Stearns would let him die. So it really added more concrete to that foundation. So all the while, you see this great action sequence go on.
Fantastic.
Like I say, it's Top Gun-esque.
Yep.
And Cap and Falcon do what they do, albeit, though, this is where you see Falcon's inexperience come through. He doesn't listen when Sam tells him to stop doing something.
I've got this.
Yep. He gets very quickly injured in this and is taken out, but Sam does superhero things and does it well. Like I say,
surfs on a missile.
Yeah, like it's everything you're expecting from a superhero film.
Absolutely.
So, like I say, he winds up taking care of the pilots that were taken out.
Yep.
and talks down the Japanese contingent and says like, "Hey, listen, they were controlled. It's not them."
Oh, and this is a point that throughout the battle, Sam tries bringing up with the Japanese fleet, the Japanese pilots. They don't want to listen. Ross tries calling the Japanese prime minister and explaining the whole thing, and the prime minister calls him out on his bullshit and goes, "Yeah, and who did they listen to?" Ross doesn't want to tell him it's the leader and blah blah blah. So he goes, "Yeah, exactly." Hangs up. So finally, when push comes to shove and the pilots are taken out and they don't go after the Japanese pilots, they're like, "Oh, hey, they were telling the truth the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, we're good now."
Yeah. So with crisis averted, everybody heads back to Washington.
Yep.
And during this time, Sam Wilson goes to check in. Obviously, he checked in on Isaiah Bradley, who really is, we didn't allude to it as much, but when he's already gone to check on him, he doesn't want anything to do with Sam. He just, he already knows, like,
he's like, "I don't want this to get back to you." Well, the problem is it's already there.
Yeah. So at this point, too, Sam goes to check on the Falcon in the hospital.
Yep.
And lo and behold, we have a guest star that makes his appearance.
Uh-huh.
And it's not exactly who we're thinking.
I thought it was going to be Nick Fury.
Well, they alluded to earlier in the film that General Ross wanted the Avengers back and wanted Sam Wilson to do it, albeit a government-led team, which Sam had reservations about. But in this situation, we find, no, it's not Nick Fury. It's one congressman-elect.
Well, not yet. He's running for office. He hadn't been elected yet.
Yep, but it's Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. So Sebastian Stan reprises the role.
Yep.
They have a great speech, and this is that moment where it's put into Sam's head when he has that doubt that every great superhero has had.
We also find out he was offered or at one point could have taken a super soldier serum, but elected not to.
Yeah.
I don't remember that happening, but hey, interesting.
I don't remember that either, but I also want to question that too. Because there's only been one through the history of time.
Successfully, yes.
Yeah, so what was he going to take? The infinity formula that Bucky has? Which that would make sense, I guess, but at the same time, it doesn't. So they alluded to, it was just kind of more of a metaphor the way I took it.
Sure.
Because it's like, okay, you took the super soldier serum, would anything have changed? No, people listen to you because you inspire them. You represent them. And then literally he hits it right on the head. Like, this is what Captain America is all about. It is to be the inspiration for the nation. It is supposed to be based on the ideals, not the political bullshit. And this is where Sam gets more confident in himself. Albeit, though, a very funny moment with Beth Sapra.
Oh, my God, yeah. So she comes walking in after Barnes leaves, and she's like, "Is that who I thought it was?" And Sam's like, "Yeah." And she starts going on about how he's taller than she thought it was in the back and this, and she becomes very enamored by him. And she's like, basically says, "Oh, he's kind of cute." And Sam goes, "You realize he's 110 years old, right?" And she pauses and goes, "Yeah, I could work with that."
Yeah. So it's a little fun moment before everything gets serious again, because now General Ross is ready to address the reporters at the White House.
Gets a phone call from his daughter, Betty.
Yeah, which they alluded to in the beginning that they've been estranged since the Incredible Hulk movie.
For like a number of years.
Yeah, so he's been trying to reconnect, and she does finally hit him back.
And she says, "I should have called sooner, especially after what happened at the White House."
Yeah, so they're now starting to reconcile a little bit, and he's talking about walking her to the Cherry Blossom
like they
park,
used to.
Like they used to. So that'll come into play in just a little bit, because now Ross is going to address everybody in the Rose Garden. And as he's saying about the treaty he's about to come through, at the hospital, Sam Wilson runs into Samuel Stearns, who pulls up and goes complete Bond villain.
Starts monologuing again.
Again.
Edward Nygma.
Yep. And basically says his entire plan and say, I'm coming in to surrender.
He tries to say it without saying it. He tries to lead Sam on enough breadcrumbs that where Sam figures it out on his own.
Yeah, which a
little infuriating.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that they misfired this whole sequence, and I think with all the rewrites that we heard about, I think this is one situation I think definitely was.
Yeah.
So all the while now, that Sam has to go fly to the White House to try saving Ross, because basically Sam Stearns is like, "Yep, I've done what I needed to do. I'm just going to turn myself in."
And Stearns is like, "You can try, but you're going to die."
Yep, because as he goes to the White House, the treaty is about ready to get done.
He's taking questions from reporters. All the meanwhile, as soon as Stearns gets arrested, an article gets published online about what went down between Stearns and Ross. The reporters start asking questions about it. Ross gets flustered, and at that point, the PA system gets hijacked at the White House and starts playing the phone conversation, or whatever you want to call it, between Ross and Stearns, and it's very incriminating. It's not good stuff.
Oh, completely.
And at that point, they're like, "We need to get you out of here. This is bad PR wise." And at that point, he loses his you-know-what, and Hulk's out.
Yep, he turns into Hulk.
Yeah.
Red Hulk. Which, not surprised, happened in the comics.
We saw this in the trailers.
Yeah, and he goes complete Hulk because this was the end game of the entire movie, is Stern's revenge, which he had a time that he turned himself in, everything would get publicly released. So, like I say, he had that switch on it to make this happen, and sure enough, he does. Because now we've unleashed the Red Hulk onto the White House, which the one reporter said, oh, they come in red now?
That was a good line.
It was a good line.
Good line.
And as this comes down, Sam Wilson has to come flying in, and he is completely outmatched, but he has to use his brains here.
Can we just talk about the optics for a second of how bad this looks? Because this isn't just national television. This is international television.
Oh, completely.
All the meanwhile, you've got the president who's been elected for less than 6 months now, who's now turned into a raging Hulk on international television. The Secret Service pulls their guns and starts shooting at the man on television. All the meanwhile, and plus the folks with the automatic rifles on the roof start firing at him. All the meanwhile, the White House is getting demolished. Sam takes off from fighting him there, and then the Washington Monument almost gets pulled down. So the optics on this are very bad.
It's completely crazy, but this is where Sam Wilson's thinking comes into play.
Yep.
He knows that there's civilians all around. He has to get them to a secluded place. He goes to the Cherry Blossom Park.
Yep.
And right here we see the showdown that we've seen a lot of times where Sam kicks the shield up to his hand. He's ready to say, come and get me. We see Rulk ready to do what he does. Plays right into the character, like I say, from the hand claps to the, like I say,
the leaping.
Yeah, everything was on point for what it needed to be here. Their fight is knockdown, drag out, as we expected. I mean, Sam going to extremes. In fact, when he loses a wing.
Yeah, the vibranium wing, made by the Wakandans, ripped off.
Yeah. But they wind up doing this until Sam causes a big distraction, if you will, and winds up taking everybody down around him based off the Hulk's rage. And at this point, too, you do see that all the while Sam has been trying to calm him down and more or less drains him because, like I say, he almost gives him that near-fatal blow.
Yeah, like in the kidneys or something.
Yeah, so it winds up, like I say, just the exhaustion and Sam just kind of talking, too. Just the combination of both, and you see General Ross finally come back down. His anger is leveled out. Like he's been drained because literally Sam's gamble was to wear him out.
Yeah, well, and I know some people had some issues with this knockdown drag out fight, and all he did to stop the fight was talk to him. Well, you got to figure for as long as he knew Bruce and as long as he knew Natasha, Black Widow, he knew, or at least had been told of the contingency plan in case Hulk went, before he went Smart Hulk, what to do. So it's plausible that he knew, okay, I can't exactly say the same phrase for this that we would have had to use for Bruce, but something along that line probably works.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's Captain America 101.
Yeah.
There's
a motivating speech.
There's a lot of motivation, but it's a lot of like breaking through to people that don't want to hear it. And that's something that Steve has done well, and so has Sam. It's like both their characters make sense. So when Ross finally reverts back to normal, he's taken away.
Yep.
Isaiah Bradley's cleared of all charges. And you see that Sam Wilson is now going into business mode. Because he's saying, you know what, we do need Avengers.
And you better be, and he tells Torres, like, hey, you better be ready to answer the call.
Yep. And then the treaty goes through. Everything's very peaceful. Ross obviously resigns.
Ross resigned, arrested, charged, sentenced, and is sent to where?
The Raft.
So I called that before they even showed. I'm like, oh yeah, he's at the Raft.
Oh, there's no question about that. So while he's there, Sam Wilson visits him, and they kind of have their
heart to heart
parting shots, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to check in on a fellow soldier.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Sam wanted to just say, like, basically,
I was right.
I was right. You were wrong. And you know what? He had no problem doing the victory lap. I had no issue with this. But then we see Liv Tyler reprise her role as Betty Ross.
Yeah, I was surprised to see this.
Very surprised to see, and she came down to visit and kind of give the happy ending, which I was like, it would have been better if she didn't. I'm sorry, I'm just like, in this situation, no, he needs to atone, and now we have.
Well, and I wonder if maybe they had a bigger role for her planned in this movie, but just because of filming schedules that couldn't come in, like, because this is literally like a 30-second scene that she's in for, and I wonder if this is the only time she could get in for it, and they had planned for more for her in this film.
Yeah, but literally that's how everything wraps up, and then we go to the post-credit scene, which I'll admit this was meh.
Yeah, I mean, it was fine for what it is. I think it's just a thing and a way to get the casuals who aren't watching every show and might not have seen the last couple of films because of the reception or time or what have you, to just go, hey, things are starting to ramp up here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Sam Wilson goes to see Samuel Stearns, who's now at the raft. And
he warns Stearns. He's like, when you escape, I'm gonna catch you. And it's alluded to at the final scene where Sam goes to meet Ross that Stearns escaped already, and Sam lived up to his word. He caught him and he put him in the raft.
Yep. But this is where Samuel Stearns tells him about how he's seen the future. He knows what's coming, and there's more from other worlds that are going to be appearing.
This almost reminded me a little bit of Crisis on Infinite Earths.
A little bit.
Where they're like, hey, this is going to happen. And the hero's like, yeah, sure. Okay, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, it's all setting up for, if there's any question, I think now it's fully leveled out that this is going to be Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars. They're going to be basing this off.
Absolutely.
So
I also didn't really necessarily agree with Stearns being the one to say this. I think it would.
I agree with you there.
I think it would have made more sense if maybe Paul Rudd showed up and was like, "Yo, you won't believe." Like if this was taking concurrently with the events of Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania, that like Paul Rudd shows up and goes, "You will not believe what I just ran into. Like, here's what's coming."
Yeah, I think they could have had a better credit scene here.
Yeah,
I really do.
It's just like I understand, and like we said, there's not a lot of time between now and Secret Wars, so you really got to get things going. You could have done better than Stearns.
Oh, completely, 1,000,000 times better.
Yeah,
but I think though overall, this film had its faults, but it was a very good film.
Oh, it's enjoyable. Yeah, like I said, it's the first film since probably Shang-Chi, I would say, that I've come out of it going, you know what? I wouldn't mind seeing that again.
Yeah.
You know, and then, like I said, not necessarily day one on Disney Plus, but at some point down the road, you know, I might throw this on for a rewatch.
Well, it's definitely worth it to see about Anthony Mackie's performance.
Yeah.
Like I say, if there was ever a question about like Sam Wilson being Captain America, I think he put every doubter to sleep.
Absolutely.
Like I say, just there's no talk. That's what I mean by that. Like he was phenomenal in this role. So if you can quiet the noise there, like he does great. And Carl Lumbly, like I say, when he was in roles, absolutely crushed it. Phenomenal in the role. Because like I say, he was the driving force, and you could definitely feel the anger and the emotion that he had built up, obviously, with his character throughout the years. And it was pouring out on the screen, so you couldn't help but like want Sam to win, to get him free. And then even Harrison Ford's performance, albeit though, like I just did not like how they merged their two stories together and tried to make it into one film. Like I think that did a disservice.
As an espionage film, it's good. But as like a Marvel cinematic film, it's okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. They tried too much with this.
Yeah.
And I think they just missed their mark. And I think they just had way too many Hulk cameos and Hulk lore.
Well, and I feel like they should have at least kept the Hulk thing, you know, especially the Red Hulk until the end.
Yeah.
The fact that they showed it heavily in the promotional material, and it's honestly, what would you say, maybe 5 minutes in the film?
I mean,
grand total?
Yeah, 10 maybe?
Somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes, but we've been seeing, you know, the Red Hulk in promotional material for like the last 9 months or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, I just wish that they would have kept that a secret and like, because people wanted to see the Red Hulk for a while. And we finally got it, and it's for maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I just think they just tried adding too much of General Ross's story in here. And obviously, that's the only thing he's been notable for the past couple of years.
Well, and I think they also tried to play a little bit of catch-up because, let's face it, we haven't seen the character outside of maybe a couple appearances in quite some time. So this is, hey, we forgot this important character we want to include. Let's play catch-up.
Well, I think unless it's going to tie into something more.
Which I could see.
Yeah.
I could see Ross returning at some point down the road.
I mean, I could definitely see that as well, depending on where it makes sense.
Could do the whole, we can't trust him. Oh, he's not the same guy he used to be.
Yeah, so that's the one situation there where you can kind of make that argument and see just what makes sense. But I mean, obviously Harrison Ford stepping into the role from the late William Hurt, I think did a great job.
Phenomenal job.
Yeah, to do it because, like I say, he could have mailed it in if he wanted to. But I think he understands his fan base and understands what comes with it, and he wanted to really give fans something to talk about. I just think everything else in the middle, we just had way too many characters, and it's nothing against the actor who played Samuel Stearns. It was all right.
Yeah, he was doing the best with what he had.
But yeah, like I say, Tim Blake Nelson. Apologies, I blanked on that. he was okay, but it was just like you tried making him into too much of a Bond villain, and it just didn't connect because I don't think you had that much espionage go down. Like, it wasn't like a big like
right
moment that they were trying for. I think they did too little with the Serpent Society.
Oh, agreed. I don't think they even called them the Serpent Society once in this entire film. I think it was just the Serpents.
Yeah, like they really shortened them up and really made them a non-factor.
Almost did to them like they did to, what was it, the 10 Rings in Iron Man 3.
Yeah, completely. Like, I just think that they dropped the ball there. I mean, obviously, Ruth Bat Sapra's character, I mean, was forgettable.
What are they doing with her? Because are they trying to make her the new Black Widow? Like, I didn't understand.
No, honestly, I think it was just to tie more of the Hulk history in there.
Yeah,
and I just think that was just a forgettable role, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I'm going to say about that character. I just think that they just tried doing, and it's nothing against the actors who played them. I want to stress that. I just think for how it was written, it was just like you tried tying in way too much of the Hulk.
Yeah.
Into this movie, and you shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
This should have been centered more around Cap. If you want to do the General Ross thing, that's cool. Like, I'm not mad about that.
Right.
Tease a Betty appearance, sure, okay, but I don't think we needed the deep lore of like, if you're going to have the leader be it should be the leader against Sam Wilson.
Right.
Period. Like, not General Ross involved.
Right.
Make it something that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where I find faults with the movie. But I think overall, the performances of the three actors I had mentioned and really been raving about, I think sold this movie.
Yeah.
And really made me go, okay, this is a very good film.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, Pat, why don't you give me your grade 1 through 10 on this?
1 through 10, I'd say it's 7. It's good. It's enjoyable. I'll definitely rewatch this again at some point, but by no means is it the greatest film of all time.
I'm right there with you. I think it's a 7. I mean, it's better than average.
Yeah.
It's not, like I say, it's not a lights out film.
It's not Inhumans bad.
No, by no means. There is great performances in here.
Yeah.
And those, when they're on screen, carry this film to a strong spot.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's just too much extra bells and whistles that are added that you don't need. I mean, you don't even need D-Man in here, even though I know who that is.
They don't even name him.
Right. You have to do the deep dive, which I mean,
you got to look at the credits in the film, see who the character is, and then you have to know who that person is.
Yeah. But like I say, for everybody else that was included, it was just like we danced around in that middle act, and everything felt really forced there.
Mm-hmm.
And that definitely, to me, in my opinion, that definitely felt like rewrites.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think they gelled. But when they hit their mark, they hit their mark.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that fans should go check this out because where Anthony Mackie's going to be going with his character.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the fact that they said he's going to be leading the new Avengers team, that's going to be the one we see in Avengers Doomsday.
Probably, yeah.
However that plays out is to be determined.
I'll say this. He'll be leading it by the end of Avengers Doomsday.
I would say so. I think that's a very safe bet.
I think that's a moment they leave for like the last couple minutes of Avengers Doomsday where we finally see them back together.
Yeah. But
whatever incarnation it's going to be.
True. But now we see the road start forming there. And I think Thunderbolts has now really become a must-watch film.
Now it makes sense why they're trying to get together this new team because, hey, the Avengers aren't going to be there to save us.
Yeah, because with Congressman-elect possibly Bucky Barnes.
He's running. We'll see if it actually happens or not.
Yeah.
I thought for a minute they made him vice president.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Because until they said Congress that he was running for Congress, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was a quick blip and you miss it, but in this situation... all bets are off of what's going to happen in Thunderbolts, but for leading into the MCU, I think this is a solid lead.
Yeah,
not great, not horrible, but it's a very, very good one.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, hit us up on the hashtag ODPH Pod. We gave you our review of Captain America: Brave New World. Now we want to hear yours, so hit us up. Let us know. We're going to get a quick breakout. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder, and you better listen to the ODPH podcast, or I'm coming for you, and Batman is coming for you.
Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. Pad, what you got?
Couple things I got to talk about. The first of which is some MCU news, and it might not be some good news for those of you who are looking forward to these projects. And that is a couple of TV projects that were announced, alluded to, whatever the status was, are now on pause. And this is according to the folks over at Deadline, where the article reads, quote, Marvel Television has paused development on 3 projects, Nova, Strange Academy, and Terror Inc. Sources stressed to Deadline that these projects were never officially greenlit and may still come to fruition at some point. The studio has simply shifted priorities at the moment. We're told the decision is also reflective of a new model of producing television that's emerged at Marvel in recent years. Originally, Marvel approached series development in much the same way it had handled features. A slate was announced, and what was teased was more or less what got made. A couple of years ago, senior leadership decided to retool the development process as they were also revamping their new Daredevil series, Born Again. Close quote. So, a little surprised, also not totally surprised, just because, especially when you look at the whole point of the article brings up that, like, you know, they're changing the development process and how they do things. And I think that makes sense to a certain degree, just because you look at some of the shows we've had over the course of, you know, Disney Plus years. How many of them have come out that we've seen not a word or hint of those characters since?
Yeah.
So I think that makes sense to a certain degree, that, like, hey, let's not go making these things if we're going to use these characters and then not touch them again for the better part of like 3-4 years. Why don't we do a more selective approach?
See, the only thing that really kind of makes sense to me about this, Terror Inc., I was surprised to even hear that got mentioned. Like, that's a deep dive from the 90s. Very deep dive. Mm-hmm. Strange Academy, I could see, because Benedict Wong.
Yeah.
I could see.
Busy dude.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But I could see that being like a coin flip.
Sure.
Because I think that the Academy concept is good, but I don't know how the reaction has been. Mm-hmm. Nova is the one I'm more shocked with.
Right.
Because
they've been talking about that for a couple of years.
Nova's been like, I don't want to say that this will be kind of a weird comparison, but it's like the Flash.
Sure.
Like, or Green Lantern, I should say. Lanterns.
Sure.
Everybody's been talking about doing this show. And there's and depending on what iteration of Nova you want to do, it has a very strong fan base.
Oh, yeah.
So I understand that there's a very big push to make this character happen. I mean, me personally, I would much rather see New Warriors.
Sure.
I like the Nova thing, I think is cool, but I think at the same time, it just depends on what you want to do for it. So that one I'm a little more shocked at. Yeah. But I'll have to kind of wait to see how it all plays out. But
yeah, we'll see. Next up, we did get a release date for the upcoming second season of The Last of Us on HBO and Max. It is debuting Sunday, April 13th at 9 o'clock Eastern.
Okay.
So get your butts ready. Start your rewatch now. Super excited for that to come out. Also announced today, did not see this coming, we got a new Avatar The Last Airbender series coming from the original series creators. So this is according to the folks over at Deadline, and the article does say that the new series is going to be called Avatar 7 Havens. It's a 26-episode 2D animated series, which has been ordered by Nickelodeon, and it is from Michael DiMartino and Brian Konietzko and Avatar Studios. The article does say, quote, Avatar 7 Havens is set in a world shattered by a devastating cataclysm. A young earthbender discovers she's the new Avatar after Korra. But in this dangerous era, that title marks her as humanity's destroyer, not its savior. Hunted by both human and spirit enemies, she and her long-lost twin must uncover their mysterious origins and save the Seven Havens before civilization's last strongholds collapse. Close quote. So, little bit of a twist, because I know they've had several projects in the works over the last couple of years, movies and other shows. You got the live action series Netflix is doing. I'm interested in this take, though, just because you look at what happened in the original series, which was kind of like a lost child discovering who he is and having to save the world into what turned into Korra, which, for as much as people may or may not like Korra, I enjoyed it for what it was. But this is a different take that I am very interested to see whenever this comes out.
I saw everybody that was an Avatar fan really got up for this.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's different.
Yeah.
Just because in both instances of Avatar, The Last Airbender, and The Legend of Korra, the main character being the Avatar is, revered and beloved, and everybody likes him, well, to a degree, if you go back to Avatar, but you get my point. Mm-hmm. So to see something like something has happened and it's completely 180, I'm sitting here going, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
So I'm interested in this. Speaking of surprising and interested, I did not see this coming, at least not at this point. And that is Amazon MGM Studios is taking over creative control of the James Bond franchise, with producers Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli stepping back to the tune of around $1 billion. So the news first came down early this morning, reading from an article on Deadline. It says, quote, in news that will send shockwaves through the industry, longtime James Bond producers Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli are relinquishing control of the beloved spy franchise and handing the reins to Amazon MGM Studios. As part of the arrangement revealed Thursday, Amazon and the producers have formed a new joint venture to house the Bond intellectual property rights, with Broccoli and Wilson remaining co-owners of the franchise. Under terms of the new venture, Amazon MGM Studios will gain creative control of 007. Financial details were not discussed, but there is already industry speculation that Broccoli and Wilson will have received a healthy payday from Amazon and will continue to have some shared economics going forward. Close quote. So, not totally surprised by this. Just I figured this was coming at some point, just because there's been rumors and speculation for the last couple of months that something was going on behind the scenes, that there was a reason for the delay, and because it's been a while since No Time to Die released, and obviously that was the last film Daniel Craig was doing. He had fulfilled his contractual obligations. He said he didn't want to play the role anymore. So then it became, well, we got to cast the next person. And there's been rumors, Henry Cavill's name came up again. Aaron Taylor Johnson's name got thrown out there, among a host of other folks. Directors' names have been thrown out, but really nothing's happened and things kind of stalled. And obviously there was the whole sale of MGM Studios to Amazon, and that whole thing went through. And then there's these stories that came out that Amazon wanted to MCUify the Bond franchise, that they wanted to do, television series that tied into the franchise and other films that tied into the mainline franchise. But the only thing that was keeping them back from doing that was Broccoli and Wilson having controlling interest in the franchise. Obviously, money talks, and the other article from Deadline is to be believed that it's to the tune of about $1 billion.
I could see that.
You hand me $1 billion, I'll do what you say.
Exactly.
I'm gonna have a hard time saying no to that. But obviously, Amazon won out. I know the Bond franchise, the Bond fans, and some folks are acting like the sky is falling, and to a certain degree, I can understand that. But I'm in a let's wait and see. I don't want to pass judgment on something until I see it. If we start seeing, we're going to do a Q we're going to do a Q series, and we're going to do a Moneypenny series, and then we're going to do this series. That's it. I might start to go, all right, you're milking it, for all it's worth, and I don't necessarily agree with that. But if they keep things status quo with something that makes sense here and there, I'll be all right with it. But we'll see.
Yeah, for that kind of money, I understand it.
Yeah.
We'll just have to wait to see. Bond in space, Bond time travel. Anything is possible
Bond
now.
did space before.
Anything is possible. So that said, before we get into comic picks, obviously there's some big comic news that was dropping via Marvel today.
Oh.
So according to the press release they sent over to us, thank you again to Marvel Comics for doing that, Chip Zdarsky and Valerio Schiliti are taking over a new era of Captain America.
Oh, okay.
In July. So here's the cover pad.
Oh, wow.
So
it's a nice looking cover.
Yeah, so I am excited about this one.
Chip does good work.
Chip does amazing work. So listen, bring it on. I am all in about this one.
Yeah.
And then they had some other news happening as well, too. I have to dig through because there was a lot that was dropping today.
Right.
I think the biggest one, though, for me, and this kind of threw me for a loop, worlds collide as Miles Morales swings through the new Ultimate Universe.
Oh, really?
So an Ultimate Spider-Man Incursion, which is going to be a 5-issue limited series by Dennis Camp, Cody Ziglar, and Jonas Scharf.
Dennis Camp, it's going to be amazing.
Listen, this whole lineup is amazing. So just give it to me now. I'm in on this. This is coming out in June. Cover looks incredible, and just to see what Miles Morales is, you think about what he was involved with the previous Ultimates universe. Now to see him involved in this new one, oh man! So a lot of news is happening from Comics Pro this weekend. So I'll definitely be talking about that on Nerd Initiative and here this week. So definitely keep in tune for that. But this one definitely is making a lot of noise. So very excited to see about this. And like I say, we'll recap Comics Pro and all the stuff that came down next week. But that being said, Pat, we got comic picks we got to get through. So what do you got?
2 this week, both of them from Marvel. The first of which is Amazing Spider-Man, issue number 68 from Justina Ireland. This one reads, The 8 Deaths of Spider-Man continues. The scions of Sidorak are too much, and Spider-Man has used up all of his lives. Is this the final death of Spider-Man? Love the issue this week. Real interested to see where they go with this because, well, who knows? I'm very interested to see it. It's a fantastic issue. Also from the folks at Marvel this week, Star Wars The High Republic, Fear of the Jedi, issue number 1 from Kevin Scott. Description of this is What Scares the Jedi. New York Times bestselling author Kevin Scott returns with artist Marika Cresta for the galaxy-shattering final arc of Star Wars The High Republic. As fighting within the Nihil Occlusion Zone intensifies, Jedi Master Keeve Trennis is set upon a path that will change her life forever. Guest starring the Acolyte's Wookiee Jedi Master Kel Naka, alongside fan-favorite characters from Star Wars The High Republic novels, audio dramas, and comics. So if you've been keeping up with The High Republic, you're definitely going to notice some familiar faces in this, so it's something for everybody. But I'm very interested to see where this goes. It's a very interesting setup, and Kevin Scott, it's going to be good.
Yeah, definitely one to make a lot of noise this week at the comic shops. No talking with fans online about it. For me, heavy DC week, New Gods number 3. So this has been Ram V. Evan Cagle's reinterpretation of Jack Kirby's fourth world characters. Very deep setup with this one, I would say. So if you want a little more history about what's going on, this is a good issue to jump into. Also, DC Comics Milestone Media. Whew. This has been one, like I say, I've read Milestone before. I love the characters of this universe, and this is the finale of the Milestone universe, the Shadow Cabinet series. So this is one Icon, Static, Hardware, the Blood Syndicate. Like, this is amazing. Like, I really have enjoyed this series, and this is one that lives up to like that big fight feel. I will say this. So if you haven't dived into this universe, I highly recommend it. Go check it out where you can, and I hope they're doing some more. I'm not sure about when we're coming back, but the vibe I get is like there is a whole new era that's going to kick in for this universe with a new franchise player, in my opinion, and I can't wait to see what she does in the role. So we'll have to wait and see. Also, DC Comics, The Question All Along the Watchtower, Alex Segura, Cian Tormey, Raul Fernandez. The story of Renee Montoya as the security of the JL Watchtower only gets wild and crazier. Pat, I'm just showing you the cover.
What the hell?
Yeah, because we found out the mastermind behind the attack on there is one cyborg Superman, Hank Henshaw himself.
Oh, shit.
So
that ain't good.
The ish hits the fan with this one. Very, very cool series thus far. I love what's going on here. Highly, highly recommend it. Also, Batman Superman, World's Finest, Mark Waid, Adrian Gutierrez. And this is the story with Batman and Superman teaming up with Aquaman, and they're under the sea and dealing with the Floronic Man and Swamp Thing, and it's just wild as crazy. It's amazing. Like, this is one, if you really want to remind yourself about how great superhero stories can be, this whole series does not miss. I'm just putting it out there. You can't go wrong with it. Last but certainly not least, Energon Universe, Skybound Entertainment, Image Comics, G.I. Joe number 4, Joshua Williamson, Tom Riley. Listen, you want that whole basically just throw on Motley Crue's Kickstart My Heart action nonstop, just wild, crazy nonsense going on, and nonsense in the good way. You have it here. Just a fun series, man. I really dig this whole vibe that they have going here. This is the G.I. Joe I grew up on, so I'm loving every issue about this. And if you even want more recommendations, nerdinitiative.com is the place you need to be. Over 40 reviews this week, I believe. We got to.
Sheesh.
Like, nobody's doing the reviews like the Nerd Initiative bullpen, so you definitely want to go check them out and then go hit the comic shops and let us know what you're picking up, because we definitely are interested to hear what you're picking up on New Comic Book Day. That being said, that's all we got for this week. So for the one and only Padawan J.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you as always for listening to the ODPH podcast. We'll see you next time.